What's that? Oh, the Tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that. So what do you think? Does it come in black?
Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
Talking about the tales where the shadows crawl. Chapter by chapter, we've covered it all. From the capes and cowls to the darkest night. Every film, every fight, a fan's delight. Turn the page, Gotham's glory awaits. Batman on film, where legends create. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels, where the story is bright. A Batman on film, the legend's alive. Break down the madness, scene by scene. Where the city's pulse and dark dreams convene. From the old to the new, the saga unfolds. A vigilante sail in the echoing cold. Step into Gotham where justice earns. Through words and whispers the bat returns. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels where the story is bright. I'm Batman on film, the legend's alive. Pages turn as the saga unfolds. Join the journey in this timeless quest. Batman on film stands above the rest. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels where the story is bright. I'm Batman on film, the legend's alive.
Welcome to Chapter 6 of Batman Begins, Chapter by Chapter, a Batman on Film podcast, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Christopher Nolan's game-changing film. I'm Senior Contributor Javi Trujillo, and joining me today is a visitor with a marvelous pedigree, a dude who loves him some clones, the webmaster of Spidey-Dude.com, Zach Joyner. What's up, pal?
Man, it is an honor and a privilege to be here, and what some people may not know is that I loved Batman first before I loved Spider-Man. So
that would be like on the back of your Zach Joyner trading card.
Yeah,
it's like the trivia.
Yeah, I so when I was a kid, I loved Batman the Animated Series, and so I remember watching this in the theater because I was interested. Because I watched Batman and Robin in the theater. God, it's so good. It's such a good film.
Yeah, it definitely had a lot to overcome. But as this is your first time on Chapter by Chapter, and I think Batman on Film in general, I've got a few questions for you. So, as you're usually in the Spider-Verse, I want to get a metric of your Bat fandom for everybody. Who is your favorite Batman actor?
Probably Keaton. I mean, I love Bale. I know it's sacrilegious to say I've still not seen Pattinson. I just haven't sat down and actually watched it yet. I know.
Well, thanks for joining us on this episode.
So I can't comment on Patton. I liked Affleck for what he had. I think he was. I think he would have been fine. I think he was good for what the role was for him. But I think Keaton balanced the charm of Bruce Wayne and like the mask of Bruce Wayne really well, and the intensity that was required for Batman, especially in the '89 film. You know, I think back to when to watching Returns now, and I'm like, how in the world did my parents allow me to watch this? This is dark.
Yeah.
But I do have like if I was to rank them, it would be Keaton number one. Number two, just for pure nostalgia purposes, would be Adam West, because I loved those.
That's cool.
My
Yeah.
dad, they had a Batmania marathon on the Family Channel that my dad recorded on VHS, and so I watched so much of the '66 series that way.
Yeah.
And when they came back different ways, I've watched it. I have the '66 film on. I think I have it on Blu-ray. I know I have it on DVD if I don't have it on Blu-ray. But and then it would be Bell right there in third. And it's not because of Bale's inability to act. I think he's one of the greatest actors of our generation.
Yeah.
And so
Very committed.
Yeah,
to the parts that he plays.
exactly.
Sure. I think if you give like Clooney a darker in tone script, and you give Affleck a lighter in tone script, not like comedic, but like if you adjust the volume, like you'll have two very different performances out of them that a lot of people would probably think of as all-timers, as opposed to
I would
being
be
divisive.
even though Clooney is old. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him and I know Keaton's down for it, but if Keaton hadn't been down for it, he could have easily came back in The Flash and been, I think, an incredibly compelling version of the Batman.
Yeah.
More
than just his save the day cameo.
his $1 cameo of redemption arc, right?
Yeah.
It just to me, I think it's a classic example of it has to not just be the actor; it has to be the script and the direction,
the script, and
and
the
I think
material and how the material is going to be presented.
Exactly. I mean that's and that's not just comic book movies, but that's any type of adaptation.
Yeah, no, very much. What is your favorite Batman animated series?
Oh, it's got to be TAS. I mean, it's got to be the 90s show. That's such a gold standard. I think I've watched every episode multiple times. When my friend Greg Mashansky got the Blu-rays, he actually mailed me the DVDs, so I've got the DVDs of all 4 seasons.
Nice.
And it's and there's been some times where I pop them in. It's just been such a comfort food, being able to watch those things. I told my ex-wife Ashton that if Gabby ever wanted to get into Batman, that would be like the thing we would binge, just because that's something that both I can enjoy and her that she can enjoy. Nothing.
Have you tried any of the later ones?
I've watched episodes of Brave and the Bold and the Batman, and they were good for what they were. I haven't watched them all the way through, so I can't give them a thorough grade. It was one of those times where I was like, I didn't have WB for the longest time, so like the 4th season I didn't see until much later. My local market didn't have the WB. It had UPN, but not the WB. So, and for a while I didn't have either one. So that, so then, so there was a lot of things I missed in the early days, like the first season of Smallville. I think I missed a good chunk of that. So it was just a market availability. And now if I was living where I live now, that's an entirely different story. I would have probably been able to watch it when I was a kid, but I was in rural West Texas.
Well, if you ever get in the mood, Batman Caped Crusader on Amazon Prime is top notch.
I've heard that it's as good as it's like the up there with Batman.
Yeah, slightly more mature. You know, if the animated series is PG, this is more of like a PG-13, a little harder PG-13. So
yeah, you know, I mean, Kevin Conroy will always be my voice of Batman.
Well, yeah,
I don't think anybody can replace that. Just the gravitas brought.
So prolific too, between
the games,
the multiple games, not even just the Arkham series. He did other ones too.
Yeah, I mean, he loved that. He fell in love with that character, and it shows.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Batman comic or comic storyline?
Trying to think if it was Detective or Batman. I remember getting for Easter one year, my mom bought me a couple of Batman comics, and I think it was the Return of Ra's al Ghul post Nightfall. I think it's called Legacy.
Yes, that ran through everything. Yeah,
and
it culminated in 700.
Okay, it was the issue. It was
Detective 700.
Yeah, it was the issue right before Detective 700, where it was Nightwing and Tem and Batman, and they were in the desert. And
yes,
and then Ray shows up, and at the very end of the issue, I think, and so that was probably. I think I have all 3 volumes of Nightfall, so I've read those multiple times. You know, the fact that so I have an affinity for Bane as a result because I'm a 90s kid, 90s show.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's we're talking single issues. It'd be that issue right before Detective 700.
Yeah, that is a good one. Do you have a favorite piece of Batman merch?
I had it as a kid. I don't have it anymore. It got lost in some moves. I had the Batman Returns Batcave Wayne Manor, and I
nice.
I loved that.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I had the Batmobile, the one that had not the one that from the first film where it became the tube, right? But the Batmobile, the Keaton Batmobile that had like the turrets that you press down and it flipped over. You could stick Batman in there. I had that Batmobile for the longest time, where you could like press the button and the little flame thing shot out. So those are probably my favorite as a kid. And then I have a DC Direct super DC Superheroes Batman that I still have.
Cool.
So,
do you have a favorite Batman song or piece of music or like theme song? So like Bat Dance.
I always was partial to Kiss. I was always partial to Kiss from a Rose.
Yeah.
Because it's speaking of things I still have. I still have the collectible cups from Batman Forever, from the glasses from McDonald's.
From McDonald's.
Yeah, I still got off. I actually had to buy the Batman one because it got smashed. But yeah, so I had to buy one off eBay, but it was like $10. I was like, $10.
That's not bad.
It was not bad. I still had Robin and Riddler and Two-Face. So
my parents have the full set at their house, and I took one of the extra Batman ones when I moved out. When I was like 20 or whatever.
As a kid, we couldn't find the Batman one. We could find the Two-Face, the Riddler, and Robin all day long. It took us a while to find Robin, but we never could find the Batman one. So I always had to buy it like secondhand. So it was always annoying. But yeah, no. I have an affinity for Val Kilmer as Batman because I remember that's the one I remember watching in the theater. I know I watched Returns in the theater, but I remember watching Forever in the theater. I would love to see the Schumacher cut.
Oh yeah, I think everybody would.
I'm now that I know that there's an alternate cut, I'm like, I kind of am curious. And I like Batman and Robin for like if I view it through the prism of it being like the 90s version of the 60s show.
Yeah,
I can appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to look at it.
Otherwise, you're just gonna get mad.
Yeah, if you're looking at it as like a continuation of Michael Keaton.
Ice Age.
Oh my god, it's so bad.
I'm sorry to audio listeners. I apologize.
So before we get into like the episode proper, you mentioned you did see Begins in the theater. Tell me about the first time you saw it in the theater. Where was it? What was your hype level going in to
Okay,
that movie?
so 2005, right?
Yes.
So I would have been a junior in high school.
Oh, baby.
I was a babe. I'm pretty sure I had at that point. Yep, no, I was junior in high school. I had my '96 red Mercury Cougar with a Mustang engine put in, so
Ooh,
it was suspiciously fast. Had those seat belts like when you got in that like had the little track that made sure you buckled your seatbelt. You know,
yeah, the shoulder one.
the shoulder harness.
Yeah.
Me and my dad ripped out the stereo and we went to Walmart and I saved for like 2 months to buy a new stereo deck from Sony. It was a Sony Explode. I
Nice.
remember. So at that point, the only way I would have been able to see it was in Amarillo, and I lived in a neighboring town called Pampa, and it's about 55 miles northeast of Amarillo. And Amarillo is the central city of the Texas Panhandle. Texas Panhandle is 27 counties in the northernmost part of Texas, and it kind of straddles between New Mexico and Oklahoma. And so Amarillo is kind of the train stop between Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And it's certainly got a lot of Route 66 influence. So just using this as just sort of a painting of a picture here. So we would have to go to Amarillo to go watch movies because the local movie theater when I was in school was not running. My town at one point had 3 movie theaters and they just had the one. And then there was a con artist that took it over for a little bit. Talking about a guy that had stolen valor, claimed he was a colonel in the military.
Oh, geez.
Would befriend all the VFWs, say that he served in Vietnam, and turned out he was nothing more than a con artist. And he loved to buy up like distressed movie theaters and like try to restore them and then get them running, and then embezzle from those businesses and or VFWs. So yeah, it was a whole thing.
Damn.
But yeah, so I would have had to seen it at the United Artists over in Amarillo, Texas, which was just off of Interstate 40 on the west side of town, and probably most likely had my best friend Levi, my best friend Chris, and my best friend Ricky. I think we all probably would have went. Ricky probably definitely would have went. He would either drove with us or drove his own truck over. I think at that time he was dating my cousin. Yeah, I think that was it. He hadn't started dating my cousin until after we were in school. So Ricky wouldn't have been there. But definitely Levi and Chris. And so we were definitely in the theater together, watching the film, and loved it. I absolutely loved it. You know, it's funny, even today, those friends they'll ask me about, well, is Fantastic Four First Steps worth seeing, or is Superman worth seeing, or those things. So they always valued my opinion because they knew I was a comic book aficionado, and so for me it was so refreshing after knowing that this was the first time, and I wasn't familiar with Bale's work when I saw it the first time.
Okay.
So I think it was my senior year we watched Equilibrium. Like what could have been the
next Matrix.
Yeah, what could have been the Matrix if the Matrix hadn't happened. Which is a really, God, it's just such a fascinating film.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that they were both coming out at the same time. But because the Matrix was shot in Australia, which, do you know how they realized that it was going to be cheaper to shoot in Australia?
Tax breaks.
The Power Rangers movie.
Oh,
that is how.
Then
when they shot the Power Rangers movie, they saw how much cheaper it was to shoot in Sydney, and that when it came down to, because they were worried about the cost on the Matrix, that's why they shot it in Australia.
Oh,
I think Fox was the distributor for both. Well, I know it was for the Power Rangers. And
Warner's was Matrix.
Yeah. Okay, Warner's was Matrix. So I think people that worked on the Power Rangers movie, in the terms of the development, also worked on Matrix. And so
Oh,
that's
okay.
yeah. So because Saban was going to do everything on the cheap.
Well, yeah.
So, but yeah, no, this is so when I saw this in the theater, I was like, this is the Batman that I had at least started to become more familiarized with via the internet and realizing that this is like a definitive take on Batman. And going back to basics, I think was absolutely the right move. Going back to where it was darker, not darkness, but darker, where it's more crime and noir. And I didn't even know what those terms meant back then in high school.
Yeah.
But that stylization that Nolan brings, and look, I know a lot of people like to talk down on the element of grounding Batman. But out of all the comic book characters, he's probably the easiest one to ground as close to reality as possible.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't going to be a suspension of disbelief for Batman the way there is for a Superman, a Spider-Man, the X-Men, right? Um,
No, because if you try and make Spider-Man or the Hulk really grounded, they're dead
yeah,
because they get radiation poisoning and they die.
yeah, exactly. You know, I was talking with I had a student who just goes to show how old I am now. So I work at a trade school as my day job. And I literally had a student in yesterday, and she tells me her birthday, and it's the same day as mine, but in 2005.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I remember exactly what I was doing the day you were born. I was with my friends, and my mom had made me a German chocolate cake, and I got a couple of presents. I was like, "You poor girl, you've suffered your whole life." But then I told her that Stan Lee's birthday and our birthday is the same day, so that made it a little more cool. And she's like, "Who's Stan Lee?" And I was like, "Oh!"
Oh no.
And my office has like Spider-Man poster and like
F.
Spider-Man,
You get an F on this
Yeah.
assignment.
Yeah. And then when I was like, the one like Tony Stank, you
Yeah.
know, the cameos, the ones that oh yeah. I was like, that's the creator of like all of Marvel, co-creator of all of Marvel. I always say co-creator.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I recently, by the way, I recently watched the Bill and Me documentary about Bill
Oh,
Finger,
it's so good.
and it
Yeah.
is incredible. And if you,
Yeah.
yeah, look, if this is your first time listening to the Batman on Film podcast, um, go watch it. To like after you get done listening to this, of course.
Of course. So you went through quite the journey there to get to see Batman Begins, since there wasn't a nearby theater.
Mhm.
And now we've gotten how many animated and live action movies since then? Where does Begins fall amongst your favorites? Where would you rank it?
Mm. I still put Dark Knight number one, and just purely off of like live action.
Yeah.
I would put probably Begins fourth. I still think the Keaton movies hold up really well.
So
And
you've got Returns and 89 above this one,
yeah, I got
but
89.
below The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I
Okay.
got Dark Knight number one,
Interesting.
89 number two, Returns number three, and you can kind of swap between third and fourth between Returns and this one. And then Rises, I think, is just below, below that. I can appreciate Rises for what it was trying to do.
Yeah.
My dad,
That's going to be another podcast.
my dad hated Dark Knight Rises. It took him forever to get through it because he didn't watch it in the theater. I was like, "You just got to finish watching it," and he's like, "I said, just trust me." And he finally did, and he's like, "Okay, I get it now."
Yeah. Well, it helps too if you watch the trilogy in succession,
Yes.
then you can see all the callbacks and just how it actually plays as a whole piece. And for something that wasn't started as we're going to make 3 Batman movies, Like they put everything together really well, which a lot of people could take some notes on. But for today's episode,
sorry,
that's all right.
Did I cough?
Yeah.
I apologize for coughing into the microphone. And I say this as a guy that loves the MCU and has watched almost everything of the MCU and has been very disappointed by post-Endgame. So there's been some bright spots, but they haven't been as frequent as there were beforehand.
Well, for today's episode, we are looking at what we've designated as Chapter 6, Does It Come in Black? Which starts at the 46-minute, 58-second mark and runs till 58 minutes and 2 seconds. Zach, are you ready to begin?
I am ready to begin.
All right. This chapter opens with Professor Crane visiting Falcone. Crane wants Falcone to take care of a problem they're having, Rachel Dawes. And Falcone is throwing his weight around, but starts to seem slightly worried when Crane mentions that his benefactor is coming to Gotham. What do you think of the Crane-Falcone dynamic? And are you a Falcone or a Falcone guy?
Falcone.
Okay.
I like Falcone. I like that pronunciation better. The one thing that I still get irritated by this film is the Ra's al Ghul pronunciation. It is Ra's al Ghul. That's what
Denny says.
That's what Denny says, and what I go with what Denny says. It's the only blemish about that I can immediately think of across all three movies. However, I do like the dynamic because you know who Crane is. You know that there's that sinisterness, and I think the two actors really do a great job of there is a bit of a banter, but it's not playful. It's business. There's a business banter and there's that shorthand, and it's telling you a lot without going into all the exposition. And I think the acting is really, really well done because there's this awkwardness with Crane. Falcone is very much in command of the situation, and that's what you have to be when you're playing that type of character. He's the guy that holds all the cards. He's the guy that is the boss, and there's an aura, and I know the kids love to throw that word out now these days, but there's an aura to him in this scene where he's really thinking he's in command, and then coming through the conversation, starting to realize he is not in command of the situation. And if the benefactor's showing up, there's this realization of, oh no, I'm not the boss. I just playing the boss. And
yeah. I think there's Falcone being, if you go by Batman Year One, he's the guy. He's the main gangster in Gotham. And you think of Scarecrow as a main villain, not a henchman. But if either of these two guys are going to be subservient to someone, I think having that person be Ra's al Ghul, is acceptable.
Yeah.
If you're going to make him, under anybody, make one of the oldest as in the character's longevity. Batman villains of all time who would have that kind of global reach and, command that fear and have that reputation. So it didn't bother me that, both of these guys who could be their main villains of their own film are actually in service to someone else. And I thought it was a refreshing change of pace. Transitioning to Wayne Enterprises, we visit a boardroom meeting already in progress. Bruce arrives during it to see Mr. Earl, who's telling the board he's going to take the company public. When Earl gets frustrated why his secretary isn't answering, he storms in to find Bruce teaching her how to putt. And when the shocked Earl says, "You're supposed to be dead," Bale comes back with, "Sorry to disappoint." How do you like this initial glimpse of the public Bruce Wayne persona?
It's something that I feel like sometimes gets lost in the later 2 films. Um, but especially in this one, it's it's like, okay, there's Bruce Wayne. There's the Bruce Wayne I know, right? Somewhat womanizing, charming. I mean, he oozes cool. Like he
Yeah.
owns the room when he walks in. When he says Bruce Wayne, and just the subtlety of the how the dialogue's delivered, and like the pure like like somewhat horror element to her face. Like she's like, oh god, the king is here, right?
Yeah.
It's literally the prodigal son returning,
Yeah.
which is a universal story that can even be discussed from a biblical perspective, right? You know, it's it is a classic. It is a trope, but it's like one of those tropes that is universally true. If you have somebody that goes off and you haven't heard from them in a decade or decade plus, um, it shows that his time away has made him into a different person. And it kind of gives you some of the glimpse of what could have been had he not um, chosen to go on the hero's journey.
And from here, Rachel briefly learns from her boss that Bruce is back. And then we cut back to Bruce saying he wants to get to learn more about the company his family built, starting with applied sciences. And Earl comments that Bruce looks like his dad and raises a glass, welcoming him home. Do you feel like Earl is an antagonist in this movie?
Yes.
It's weird to me because, like, on the surface, he's not doing anything necessarily wrong or bad, and he's not actively plotting against Bruce.
Right.
But there's something about what he brings to the character, and it's not necessarily menace or threatening. And he's not like a Lex Luthor,
Mhm.
Machiavellian type of guy, but there's just some quality that he brings. I don't.
I think it's kind of personified in what he says right before as he's walking by. He's like, "Well, we got to stop thinking about what Thomas Wayne would want."
Yeah,
And so there's this swarminess to him, right? Because all of a sudden, the facts of the situation have changed. Oh no, Bruce is back, and so now I have to play the kiss ass. And if you've ever been around, like somebody that's been in mid level management, when you're around a swarmy guy, there's always something that feels a little off. Like you know that he's really looking out for himself and not looking out for anything other than what's best for him.
yeah.
And you kind of get that in his reactions when he's like, applied sciences. That's where I threw that's the hole I threw Fox down, to get rid of him. So there is a little I think it's the antagonistic element to him is that he's an antagonist against the Wayne legacy. I think that's
Yeah.
why I view him as that. Do you view him that same way?
Yeah, I think so. There's just this. It's not overt. It's just Howard is much more subtle in how he does it. Because he seems like a nice enough guy and pleasant, but it's everyone says actions speak louder than words, and how he does treat people underneath him.
Mhm.
Um, he
Even though
definitely
he
seems like he would be dismantling everything if it makes him richer.
Yeah, like, even how he opens up the door when the secretary doesn't respond,
Yeah,
immediately, like, "What is going and it's the shock of Bruce, and, what's really great about how the scene is shot too is you're not getting necessarily his shock, but you're really seeing the shock of the board, because I don't think that members of the board are necessarily on board based on the dialogue.
Yeah.
going public. I think because anytime you go public, there's always a risk, right? You do an IPO and it tanks. And what you thought the company was worth is really not how much the company's worth. I mean, Facebook's a great example of that. Everybody thought Facebook was going to be worth all this money on the IPO, and then the IPO launches and it's about a third. Now, eventually they made their money back. But the setting of expectations is, especially in a company like Wayne, would be extraordinarily high. Yes, they can make an extraordinary amount of money, but I think that when you take things public away from being a business, there's always the question is, do you lose the soul of the company? I mean, you and I live in Texas,
That we do.
the home of Whataburger, founded in 75 years ago in Corpus Christi, Texas, was a family-owned business for a number of years. Most of those years, for the last, I think, 10 years, they've been owned by a private equity firm. And on one hand, that gave them the ability to expand beyond the borders of the great state of Texas. However, did it lose its soul in the process? And people say, well, it's not as good. And I think it's because before it was owned by a private equity firm, there was that feeling of it being that family-owned business that it was, something you could hold in your hand and say, hey, this is something that somebody built from the ground up.
Yeah.
It doesn't, even though most of it looks the same. I mean, but the newer ones, and they look nice, and they look like the new locations are great. But there's something that was lost. Some of the spirit of what it was lost. And
It's funny that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And I think that's what's happening here. And I think that's what the board
Yeah.
is feeling when they're saying, well, we just need to go public. Do we? So what do you, I didn't mean to step over you.
No, I was just going to say, it's funny that you bring up Whataburger, because Whataburger, this isn't the first time that we've talked about Whataburger on this podcast, I think. so it's one of those, we're known for our tangents, and Whataburger has definitely been one. Maybe we should ask them to sponsor our show. And speaking of which, we're going to put a quick pin in this conversation for these quick words from our sponsors. So the next scene has Bruce meeting Lucius Fox in Applied Sciences, where he inquires about what they're developing. Fox says he was put there in that division so he wouldn't bother the board, as it's a dead end. He gives Bruce a tour, showing him a lot of the items that are going to factor into Bruce's transformation into the Batman. So, Zach, how do you feel about Nolan making Fox into Batman's cube, basically?
I actually didn't dislike it. I think that some people were like, well, it takes away from Bruce making all this stuff. And I'm like, that's fair. That's a fair argument. But, like, why wouldn't he have all this assets that's just laying around?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, in these mega corporations, right, which is what Wayne Enterprises is. When you're creating products, there's going to be a ton of R&D that, you know what, it's just not going to work at scale. Does it work at scale? Probably not. It's going to be too expensive. And as the components get cheaper, hopefully in a free market, right? Maybe it's going to be something that we can develop down the road. So you just mothball it for now, and then you go from there. I mean, the iPhone is a classic example. Or excuse me, the iPad. That was what they originally were working on, was the iPad. And then they're like, well, what if we scale this down to being in the palm of your hand? Oh, well, that's different. And eventually they've now gotten so good at doing things at scale that even the competitors are having to provide components for it, because it's going to be that cost effective. If you have an iPhone of any kind, chances are it's going to have a screen made by Samsung. If it's not made by Samsung, it's probably made by LG. Those are the competitors to Apple.
Yeah.
And so when they're talking about like, well, a soldier's life's not worth $300,000. Well, maybe not right now, but a decade from now could be, right? So it makes all the sense in the world. They would have this R&D laying around that could potentially make him into the Batman. I love the bit where he's like, "Don't tell me what you're doing, so I don't gotta lie."
Yeah.
It's
No,
complete
like
lie.
he's no fool, and
Yeah.
he immediately commands Bruce's respect. And I don't think having Fox have access and the knowledge of all these things existing takes away from Bruce developing Batman, because we see later on him putting stuff together and crafting these things. But there's only so many hours in the day, as you and I both know. Like, we can't, spend all our time reading comics and podcasting about them. There are other things that have to be taken
We
care of.
wish we could do it. We trust me.
But there's, like, it makes sense that Bruce would have someone he can trust who has knowledge of these things, and he's not going to develop every single device by himself. He's going to look at what his company has done. As smart as he is, you got to delegate, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't really feel like it's too much of a departure from like source material.
Mm-mm.
I mean, because he's still a major part of Wayne Enterprises. Granted, comic Lucius before this wasn't really helping him design things, but he was definitely an ally for Bruce Wayne. Even if he did or didn't know he was Batman, he was still helping him out on the company side of things. And that's eventually where we see Lucius wind up by the end of the film anyways. So I think it's just additive, not subtractive or changing the character too much. So, and just, me being the Bond guy that I am, and we know Nolan loves James Bond as well. Like, I don't mind seeing that parallel so much, because to me, it's just another bit of connective tissue between, two of my favorite fictional characters. So we get more backstory as Bruce and Alfred explore the caves underneath the manor, with Alfred informing him how the Waynes assisted with the Underground Railroad back in the day. Were you familiar with this bit of backstory from the comics?
Not from the comics.
Okay.
As a big history buff, obviously I knew what the Underground Railroad meant and what it was. So I'm not surprised that it was utilized. And it kind of was like, once it was like talked about and discussed, I was like, oh, well, that makes all the sense in the world. That makes all the sense in the world. Okay, I get it. And then it was like, all right, cool. It was, for me, it was the history buff that was picking up on it.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of like Michael Keaton's Batcave, it's like, how did they make this massive cavern with all these things? And you still can have that question with this, but it's a little easier to swallow and accept, knowing that the tunnels were there. Some of the structures were already there because of this other purpose. And I think it was an early 90s issue of Shadow of the Bat that kind of expanded on that. And then it gets built in later on to like Nightfall, right?
Yeah, that's such the, that sounds like something a Peter David would do.
Yeah.
Or
I think it was Alan Grant, but point
definitely
taken
like
about
Roger Stern, because I know Stern was working in DC at the time too. Like I could see Roger Stern going, well, what if we, what if, right? So I don't know what the Roger Stern equivalent of DC is. So my apologies.
I mean, Roger Stern is the Roger Stern equivalent. Because he's been at both DC and Marvel, so
that's fair.
And done some pretty prominent, work for both companies. So
true.
Yeah. Then we get, the whole montage of how the suit is developing, and the crazy ordering that you were talking about earlier that you would have to do to not arouse suspicion. Even knowing what like, do you think it would actually work if they order like 100,000 weirdly shaped bat ear pieces?
In a world without Batman? The thing is like, how the reason I think it works is, think about like our billionaires in this reality, right? They have like, these weird eccentricities.
That is true.
Like, Not surprised. Like it's like they like a specific food from a specific place. They're gonna get it flown from Paris. For just because they're in the mood for it and they've got the money to do it. They're gonna DoorDash, quote unquote. So I can see it working just because of it being like when you're a billionaire, you can do things
Yeah.
that like us peasants can't do.
And I guess it kind of works to a point until someone looks at the books and then starts to put the pieces together. But that gets addressed in the next movie. So
It's like,
um, we didn't get to see Flass on the take and how Gordon won't be corrupted. But also, Gordon's feeling helpless to do anything in a town that's that bent. As a comics fan, how did you like seeing the year one influence on this Gotham? Had you read year one before you saw the movie?
no, I can say
Okay.
that. I didn't read it until after.
Okay.
But knowing that it's Gordon, right? And knowing
Yeah.
the integrity that Gordon operates under, like the disgust that he has in his face, and this is so well done by Gary Oldman. Just the disdain and disgust he has watching his partner, you know, s- basically sort of get the mob money, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's so subtle. If you don't know anything about Batman and you don't know anything about Gordon, then it's such a subtle thing. Like there's so much subtlety in that scene where he thinks his partner thinks that he's untouchable. He's naive. The naivete that he's saying that Gordon has is really the naivete of his partner.
Yeah.
Like the irony that is a textbook definition of what irony will be once you get later on in the film and you're like, oh yeah, that's especially if you've watched it before, rewatching it, you're like, oh, the irony that is dripping in this scene is hilarious. The thing about this set of scenes though that I will say is, and this is what Marvel was good at, especially in the first three phases. There was an element of fun in these films. There is humor. There is,
Yes.
there it's not a completely soulless, humorless, dark, dour, angry, bitter type of thing. You can still be dark and still have some levity. That's the problem that I think some other films, the DC multiverse, did not have. Was there was no levity. It was so damn serious. It's so damn dark that times where there could be levity weren't. And then when you try to have somebody that would stick levity in, it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so because of everything previously established. So it's like, okay,
It's like Mark Waid on The Flash. Like you can't all of a sudden change Wally West as a character. You have to take what came before in the prior 70 or 60 some odd issues and then slowly build it in. And I think that was missing. But like watching like this scene and you're talking about the subtlety that Gary Oldman brings, it's like I just feel bad for Pat Hingle. He kind of had something to do in the original 89 Batman, and then it not even slowly devolves. It goes from having multiple scenes and being a figurehead to thanks for saving the day, Batman, and cheering him on at the end and being seduced by Poison Ivy and
yeah,
just
he was a caricature, and you
yeah,
feel
he
bad
quickly
for him.
became a caricature. Even in the second Tim Burton movie,
Yes.
he has
Which
nothing to do.
The thing about the second Tim Burton movie is that it's the most Tim Burton-y Tim Burton movie of all Tim Burton movies, and that happens to have Batman in it. And for his, was it Peters was his last name, the producer that he clashed with on the first film?
There's John Peters and Peter Guber.
Yeah, like them pulling him back, against his better impulses, I think would have probably made that movie a lot better.
Yeah.
because it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong, it's a good movie, but like it is dark and dour, but also still kind of funny. And I think that was the thing that makes this movie. And a lot of people want to compare it to the first Burton films, but like the moments of levity work even better here than they did in because sometimes there's some goofiness elements that especially in Returns, that almost come across as a tonal shift. Does that make sense? Whereas this is just levity and levity moments, but it's not a tonal shift. This tone doesn't change. It's still the same.
Yeah.
It's not like we're just shifting between tones throughout the movie.
And speaking more about Gordon, Bruce in a balaclava visits Gordon at night in the next scene, sneaking up on him from behind, possibly holding a weapon to his head as he attempts to get information about the lay of the land. Talk about this approach and Batman's ingenuity in this scene.
It just shows how, because like the thing with his training in the previous chapters is that Bruce is such a natural at this.
Yeah.
And to be able to bring it to his world and make it his own. This is I mean, this is where Batman truly begins, right? It's not just getting the gadgets and doing the things, but this is the scene that's truly the genesis of what he would become as Batman.
Now
And
we're
then,
two.
like, then he jumps off the building.
Oh man, that had to hurt.
Oh,
like it's just
it looks painful. Even though he's Batman and he's gonna be fine, but like the pain expression in his face, that when they did that stunt, and I don't know if Bale did it or not, but like just the pain on his face, it's like, oh yeah, that looked like it hurt like a son of a bitch.
Yeah, even without it being a movie and then putting in sound effects to emphasize that, like, ow, that slam could not have been fun.
Yeah.
And how about that Chicago skyline too, man? Just
yeah.
Like, I love the production design of the prior movies and like creating this fictionalized immersive world. But and I've talked about this in other chapters, just the scope that this movie has from its real settings. It makes a big difference.
Well,
and I like being able to appreciate that.
Yeah, and Chicago being what it is, right? It's the crime-addled, crime-ridden second city. Outside of New York, like it's the one that organized crime was, running rampant out of. Like Gotham City is Chicago. And so filming in Chicago makes all the sense in the world. Like yes, there's a Chicago in the DC universe.
Yeah. But like 20s Chicago, 80s New York, either one of those is like a good
1,000
similarity to Gotham.
The late 70s, early 80s New York City before Giuliani came in and with the RICO case and then eventually became mayor. Like that, that's Gotham City. Where Times Square was full of like prostitutions.
I mean, which is what we see at the beginning of 89, and that's something that both Frank Miller and Scott Snyder have commented that era of 80s New York, late 70s, early 80s was it wasn't that hard to make that leap.
Yeah, it was filthy and grimy, and it was kind of gross, and you didn't want to take your kids there. Like it wasn't safe to take your family there. So,
and after this, Bruce goes back to Lucius for some lightweight fabric after slamming into the wall, and we get introduced to the memory cloth. And there was it Kenner who did the Batman Begins toys? I want to say it was Kenner.
Yeah, it was Kenner. Toy Biz did the first ones, did the first film, the 89, and then
right.
Kenner did
it was Kenner.
Yeah, pretty much for the rest.
So they would have the ads in like the comic books for, the different toys, the Batman Begins wave, and there'd be one for the Tumbler, and it had the tagline for the billionaire spelunking base jumping crowd. And I just love that line of Bruce's and how Lucius goes back to it. And it's here that Bruce is looking around. He's like, "What's that?" And Bruce sees the Tumbler for the first time, and Fox tells the audience all about the features, and we get the line that was used heavily in the marketing. Does it come in black? So, how do you feel about the Tumbler as a Batmobile, and where does it rank as one of the live action theatrical Batmobiles for you?
Damn.
Yeah,
It's hard for me because here's why.
so
Because
hard.
the 66 Batmobile is so iconic. Like, it's hard not to make that number one. But then you got the Burton Batmobile that's like right there. So it's
Yeah.
like, one or two. I didn't hate the Forever and Batman and Robin Batmobiles, but it has to be at least third.
The
It's
Tumbler's third for you?
Yeah, it's the third. It's got
Okay.
to be third. And because it's so utilitarian, and it doesn't look like a Batmobile. I mean, yes, it does, like when it's black more, but like it's so over the top. But it's like, okay, what if Batman made a Humvee? It kind of works. You know what I mean? It's less
Yeah.
car and more tank.
I always have a hard time putting the 66 Batmobile in my rankings because it is so, a part of my childhood, and I had like a little Matchbox version of it, or Matchbox size version of it. It might have been a Corgi, but I always have a hard time putting that on the list. But like, I think for me, because of like just the emotional ties I have to it, the 89 is like my top. It's just the aesthetic of it, how it's just all black and streamlined, and the way the swoops and the bat wings on the back.
It's subtle,
Um,
not over the top. Like, it's over the
but
top, also subtle at the same time.
while not is obvious, like I really love the Batmobile from the Batman as well. I like the muscle car aspects of it.
Yeah, and I've
Just
seen
what
that
it
car, and it looks cool. It looks freaking
Yeah, just it's such a beast, and it feels like it came straight out of like 70s Batman comics, where he would have different Batmobiles, and one of them was a Mustang, and the Tumbler doesn't have the iconography, like the bat iconography, that prior iterations does.
Yeah.
But there's something about it that I really, really love, even though it doesn't look necessarily like what I would think is a Batmobile. Like if I squint, I can kind of see a Dark Knight Returns Batmobile,
Yeah,
or from like Batman the Cult. But there was I think it was for the 80th anniversary of Batman, it was a South by Southwest, and they were bringing back the trunks for Superman for Action 1000. And they had a little South by Southwest thing downtown, and like this little DC installation. They had the Forever Batmobile. I think it was the Justice League Batmobile, because of the cannon it had on it, and the Batgirl's Batbike, and the Robins from Batman and Robin, and they had the Tumbler. And there was something about like touching it and seeing inside, and just like having this connection. And the guy that was in charge of it, and I forget his name, I talked to him for a while, like he would jump in and just fire that thing up, and everyone would just be taken aback at how like loud it was, and the smell of the gasoline, the emissions as it roared. And it was such a visceral experience that, it's hard for me to not have this vehicle in the top somewhere,
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like, okay, knowing the world that we were living in 2005, right? We're in the middle of the Iraq War. We're in the middle of the, we've kind of completed Afghanistan, but we're now just, treading water.
Basically, yeah.
It just, for whatever reason, it's like, okay, what if Batman made a Humvee and it
Cross
just
with the Lamborghini.
cross with the Lamborghini?
Yeah.
It's like, what if those three things were just smashed together and they gave birth to something? And that's what it is. And so I think I'm with you. Like, I've seen like other shows where when they're touring the Warner Brothers a lot, they have all the Batmobiles that were put in production. At least one of them for each movie. It's like, yeah, how can you not? How can you not put that? And especially when what you see later when it actually is, in use with him, he's like, damn good television,
Yeah.
I
mean, I think that's probably the top two Batmobile chases on film is the one that we get upcoming in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And then, what would you put Burton?
Actually, no, I would go with the Batman when he chases the Penguin.
Okay.
Like that would be it'd be between those two. Like I love the the 89 Batmobile. Like that's my number one. But like if you compare just how they're filmed,
yeah, there's no
you have the back lot and you're driving by the same three corners for every shot. And there's using the grapnel to like swing around the corner. Like that's cool.
Yeah.
But you don't get the innovation that we see with the Tumbler and it.
I'm just gonna have to break down and watch the Batman one of these days.
Driving on rooftops,
it's just driving on rooftops, being a tank, like these poor police
the stealth mode. Like it's an exciting sequence and jumping ahead, but I mean that's okay. It's just that's kind of what puts it at the top for me. Is like it's just
now here's the thing,
technically well done on top of being exciting.
Does it come in black? It's probably the most Schumacher-y line of the entire film.
Okay, drive through. Yeah.
Okay, drive through.
Yeah. This is why Superman works alone.
Exactly. I mean, so it is very Schumacher-y in terms of the line.
But he sells it so well, though. The way he's like rubbing the steering wheel, and you can see the gears turning in his head as he's saying it.
Doesn't come in black, and it just that's where you're like, okay, we all have the debate whether or not Bruce Wayne is the mask or Batman's the mask, right? And a lot of people,
we don't. It's Batman. He's the real guy.
Yeah, no. Like that's the moment where it's like, that's the inner Bruce Wayne. Like the child before his parents pass away.
Yeah.
That's where the moment where that childlike wonder, like it's coming black. That to me is like, that's where you truly see elements of Bruce Wayne, like the fractured, broken man being rebuilt, but like that little bit of kid in him that can come out, so
yeah.
Does that make sense? Am I making any sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I like that. I like that observation. I think it's spot on.
Thank you.
Well, that is going to do it for this chapter there, pal. Where can the good people find you, and where do you want to plug of things you have coming up?
Oh my God. So much stuff. So, the Spidey Dude Radio Network is over on youtube.com/@Spidey Dude Radio Network. You can find us there, or just find us just search us in the search bar, Spidey Dude, Spidey-Dude. You can find all of our fine shows, some of which involve good friend Javi here. Like occasionally he comes on to the, it seems lately, occasionally comes on to the Ultimate Spidey Dude Experience, where we talk about Ultimate Spider-Man, the current 2024-2025 comic that started with a married Spider-Man. So it's been quite fun. We also have our Spidey Dude Experience, where we talk about the just Amazing Spider-Man and talk about toy news, especially Marvel Legends. I'm a big Marvel Legends fan. You can find my other fine podcast. He talked about clones at the beginning of the show, Clone Saga Chronicles, which is, I think, still to this day, the definitive Spider-Man Clone Saga podcast. Occasionally guest star on its spiritual successor, the Forgotten Era podcast, which kind of takes place between the end of the Clone Saga and the reboot of Spider-Man with Mackie and Byrne. John Byrne being a familiar name for DC aficionados, obviously, with his time on Superman. We have Spectacular Radio, which is our Spectacular Spider-Man animated series podcast. If you like animated works and you want to see how or listen to how the sausage is made, we have Greg Weisman on all the odd numbered episodes. We covered all 24 episodes of the show twice, so one from the fans' perspective and then one from the behind the scenes perspective. And then we have Voices from the Eerie, a show that I am really largely not involved in, which is the prequel / sequel to Spectacular Radio with Greg Weisman, Greg Bashansky, and Jennifer L. Anderson. The two of them kind of chronicle all of Gargoyles from the beginning. They go through and talk about the creation of Gargoyles and how it came to be. And then they also talk about the modern comics. They get the modern comics early thanks to relationship with Dynamite. So it's really kind of cool. If you haven't been reading the books, I know it's been hard to get a hold of them, but Dynamite, I think, finally has gotten everything figured out. They got a new distributor. So now the Dynamite comics of Gargoyles are coming soon. If you're a Fantastic Four fan, there's going to be a crossover, 2-issue crossover, one published by Marvel, the other published by Dynamite, where we have the Fantastic Four and Gargoyles. Then you've got Amazing Spider-Man Classics. We have season 1, which is 3 guys talking about Spider-Man from the beginning. And then season 2 is father and son, Jack and Javi Trujillo. I don't know if you know those guys at all. Talking about Spider-Man from the beginning, from the perspective of a longtime fan with Javi, and then his son who grew up around Spider-Man, but never went back and read those original issues. So it's kind of fun. And then we have the Sal Buscema era podcast, the Spectacular Sal Buscema era podcast, which covers Sal Buscema's seminal run on Spectacular Spider-Man, going from the 80s all the way up into right before the Clone Saga. And then we have Make Mine Mayday, the show all about Spider-Girl and her world, where we talk about the Earth 982 and all the appearances of Mayday Parker in and out of Earth 982. So we've covered pretty much all the comics. There's some, I think, current stuff that's being published right now, like Venomverse versus Spider-Verse. I haven't read it yet.
God.
So there's that we have looking forward to cover. But yeah, so we kind of go through, tell the story of the fandom on that show. We've interviewed Tom and Ron and Pat Olive, and kind of given them their flowers because they're just do incredible work. Tom DeFalco, Ron Friends, and Pat Olive. And then finally, you can find me over on the social medias at Spidey Dude Radio on Twitter. At Spidey Dude Network is our Facebook page for SpideyDude.com, and then Spidey-Dude.com. We've also got some great stuff coming up, like some good, awesome toy reviews by a certain guy named Javi. That's a couple of action figure Marvel Legends reviews. We've got the Maximum Series Spider-Man video coming up, and then the 77's Spider-Man 77 Walmart exclusive figure that just was released finally after so many delays. And then a price hike.
I forgot I ordered it. It was so many delays.
Yeah. This was a pre-order that was done in March. It showed up in September. I had a buddy of mine that pre-ordered it the same day as Javi, because you pre-ordered it the same day as Brian. Brian didn't get his until like this last week. I literally got mine, paid the $5 extra, got mine ordered and shipped to my house sooner than he did. So thanks, Walmart. At least I got it in a box. So there's that.
I mean, because mine came in a paper bag and it did not make the journey well. But it's that's a whole other like podcast discussion.
Yeah,
so like I pre-ordered like the Zur-En-Arrh Batman from Target. It was like a Target exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And waited for it to ship. Go to Target one day and there were like 4 on the shelf.
Oh, Target's notorious about that.
It's like why am I bothering to pre-order when I could just go down to it's just to guarantee I have it. But most of the stuff I pre-ordered from Target, I've found it on the shelf and then canceled my pre-order.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon when it comes to Target. Yeah. Target's worse. I mean, at least when I pre-order stuff like Hasbro Pulse or Big Bad Toy Shop, where you can find all your great favorite Batman collectibles, or Entertainment Earth, at least like they ship relatively soon as they start when they start shipping, they actually start shipping. They're not sitting there waiting. Target's,
Yeah.
I've seen so many times where it's either you see all of them on the shelf or you see none of them on the shelf. I know that Psylocke and Thanos 2-pack that they had that was Target exclusive that everybody's really excited about because it was based off Marvel versus Capcom. Never saw it. Never saw it on the shelf. I went into multiple Targets because I toy hunt when I'm doing, especially when I'm on weekends when I'm doing Uber, and never saw it. So, but yeah. So, long story short, find me over at spidey-u.com. Find me on the social medias. Just seems like I do a lot of podcasts. I have had a lot of podcasts. I was active with the Spider-Man Crawl Space for a long time too, and I helped launch that show. And so that's still the longest running Spider-Man podcast on the internet. So kudos and tribute to Brad. So that's kind of how me and Javi met, was through.
That's right. It was through the Crawl Space.
So thank you for having me on, man. This was a blast.
Yeah, it was fun to talk about the other side of the street, as it were. So
yeah, it's something I never get to do. I'm always on Spider-Man related stuff, which is great. So. It's fun, but to get to kind of play in the DC sandbox is kind of fun.
Well, thank you for listening. If you want to check out more of my stuff, you can go to the YouTube page for Batman on Film, where I've got, I don't even remember what Bill just posted, my Batman Hush Tweeterhead statue, maybe a Hot Toy 89 review. I don't even remember anymore. We should have an in-art 1/12 scale Christian Bale Dark Knight Rises figure coming out. And of course, written reviews for Batman and Robin Year One. I recently filled in for Bill for Absolute Batman 11. You can go to batman-on-film.com to read all of those. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, catch up with Bill on the Social Hour, listen to the Batman Book Club with Ryan Lauer and Pete Vera, and of course, the Chapter by Chapter series. We just wrapped up Batman 89, and we're chugging along here with Batman Begins for the Chapter by Chapter. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening, and announcer Rachel will take us out. Take care.
You have been listening to Batman on Film Chapter by Chapter, a BatmanOnFilm.com podcast revisiting the cinematic adventures of the Dark Knight, scene by scene, chapter by chapter. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film. For BOF news only, follow at the Batman on Film on Twitter. To become a BOF patron, go to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm. To advertise on BOF, visit advertisecast.com/BatmanOnFilm. For Jet and Team BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original. Batman on Film. Established in 1998.
Found places filled with Batman fans. It's been around songs since 98 began. Roll with the news and all the reviews. It's the go-to place to take the Gotham blues. Got a cape and cowl on knees and high. That man on film, so glad it's alive. That man on film, you feel us so. From Gotham City to the Batmobile roll. That man on film, ever strong. Feels like home where we all belong. Lights out, we're scanning the latest flick. Nothing like the sight that gives us that kick. We keep it to bail, the icons we hail. Never miss a beat on the bats in the trail. Turn the page, let the journey begin. That man been wearing that baby. Where we all been Batman on film. It thrill us so. From Gotham City to the Batmobile roll. That man on film, living strong. Feels like home where we all belong. In a world full of shadows, you bring light. the song. Every post and follow. To the call that man on film. He threw us so. Gotham City to the battlefield roll. That man on film. Forever strong.